So, welcome to this session about Power BI self-service, barriers and benefits. So, first of all, I would like to thank our sponsor. Without them, there is no event, there is no community event possible. So, thank you. My name is Isabelle van Campenhoudt. I'm a data platform MVP for 8 years. I live in Brussels and I've been working on the Microsoft data platform, mainly SQL, of course, before Power BI, since more than 20 years now. You can easily find me on Twitter with my blog. Even my email is here, so do not hesitate. Uh, so, the agenda of today. Uh, we will first go through the data literacy concept, then to the context of this session itself, why I choose to present this, and we will go through the barriers and benefits of 3 Power BI projects that I've been working on those last years. So, the data literacy. When you think about it, when you are starting a Power BI project, most of the time you are starting a self-service BI project, meaning that you will allow your business user to do their own production on the data. And depending on the maturity level of your company, you may succeed or not. Usually, people are talking about the data culture, but there is no data culture if people are what we can call data illiterate. So, the data literacy is the capacity for people to be able to read, work, understand what a data is, what is the life cycle of the data in the company, how it works, what is a good data and a bad one, of course. What does it matter to use the proper data source, and so on and so on. So, of course, this concept will be a key to deliver a successful self-service BI project. So, we can also talk about the data literacy spectrum. Here is kind of a funny illustration of that from, the data denier, the earth is flat, to the data forward, who is a true believer into governmental algorithm to rules all the world from the data as well. So I just put that there for you to enjoy after the session. So let's talk about the context itself. Why did I decide to do this session? Actually, I've been working on several Power BI projects those last year, and I wanted to pick up 3 cases from the field and go through them to the problems we have encountered and to the solution that we have applied with success, sometimes failure. So lesson learned from the field. So the first of the case was in a public organism not allowed to go to the cloud. Yes. The second project was within a large national organization, and by large I mean 11,000 of users. And the third one is a specific smaller project, but into a big multinational organization. So those 3 cases has some very specific context. The first, so it is a public organism, and so far they are not allowed to go to the cloud. So of course, for Power BI, you may ask yourself, why is that a Power BI project if they can't go to the cloud? Because they are using the Power BI report server. They do have, though, a strong BI history from 20 years because they are analyzing the financial market and operators. The BI team works mostly in a reactive mode, meaning that they are totally at disposal for the business analyst because the core of this organism, this company, they are financial analysts. So they want a report, they ask the BI team delivers, they complete, the BI team fix, and so on and so on. That means also that the business analytic skills are high, and also that the information that is into their database is highly sensitive. In the second project, it was different because we were into a large national organization, but they do have Power BI, and Power BI was widely adopted, if I may say. So directly, it was like a fire into the company. And because the IT is still organized in silo, there is no real organization, no real governance at the moment the project started around the Power BI itself. Also, what it is important to know is that first, they do have a strong data warehouse culture. For them, the truth is coming from the data warehouse, which is a Sapana system. And they see Power BI only as the reporting layer, which is important to understand. And last but not least, the third project was into a big multinational company with a very centralized Power BI administration called BIG, like BI Group. But the project itself was very specific because I was called by the business itself, not by the IT, and there was nothing at the moment we started the project. So no data warehouse, no culture of reporting unless in Excel. And we had a great autonomy because despite the fact that there was this centralized administration of the Power BI tenant, it was still early in the story of Power BI in the company. So we were allowed to test and to try and to provide even some some feedback to the IT itself. So that was really, really nice, actually. So now let's have a look at what we can call the self-service BI benefits, because why would people use self-service BI if there was no benefits? And I will just focus on 3 points. So it will not be exhaustive, but 3 very important points for me when you decide to provide a self-service BI to your company. There are 3 important stuff. First, everybody uses the same version of data. So I will go through that, of course. Second, non-technical users can do their own data analysis. Of course, this is the main goal of self-service BI. And as a consequence, the third one is that your IT team, your BI developer team, they are free to focus on the task with the most added value, the most technical task, and not to spend a lot of time with, meeting with business to change a column color and this kind of stuff. Okay. What we will do now is that we will go through those 3 axes for each of the projects and see what has been done to achieve those objectives. So, from barriers to best practice. The first objective is that everybody uses the same version of data. So there is, of course, a huge paradox when you think about self-service BI between the autonomy that you want to provide people, let them dive into the data, do their own mashup, and so on, but still provide somehow a quality of the data, a centralized version of the truth to them, the consistency in the story. So related to that, of course, you have the question immediately, does a data warehouse exist? Because if you have a data warehouse, there is still a certain level of maturity in your company. Also, another question and a big fear from the IT is the shadow IT. And in BI, usually the shadow IT is also what we can call the Excel hell, meaning that when people receive a report or they have access to some data, they immediately want to export the report, and they want to export it into Excel to do their own mashup, their own calculation, and to use that. And of course, the problem is that at the end, you have tons of Excel files that are disconnected from the data source most of the time, and you have no idea what's in there, if the calculations are correct, if even the data source are correct or fresh. So it is really the problem of shadow IT. By offering a self-service BI to the business, of course, you will be able to keep the control of what will be published and to offer this idea of quality, of consistency of the data to the people. So let's see if we tackle that in 2 or 3 projects. So in the first case, a data warehouse was existing actually, but it was a flat one, so only relational table. There are some old cubes from the past, multidimensional, and because of the complexity, the historical complexity of the data warehouse, they were doing the report on an ad hoc basis, and it was done by the IT, meaning that the dependence between the business and the IT was very strong. And because of that, the IT was overwhelmed. So the business needed to wait until they received the report. And when they had the report, the first thing they wanted to do is to start the own analysis, by exporting the report to Excel and so on and so on. So what has been done in this case for that is that we created in a tabular analysis service a large generic data model. And this model was called the workbench, so and published as a cube, because this company is not allowed to go to the cloud. So it is the classical analysis service on-prem. And the model was explained to the analyst by regular workshops. So it is very important when you provide a semantic layer to the people that they can use it, that they can understand that to do their analysis into the data, they will go through a supermarket of data, if I may say, and they need to know where the data reside, what is the reason they are organized in that way, and so on and so on. And we are using there the Power BI server, the Power BI report server, which is the VIP version of the SQL reporting server. And this allows people to consume different styles of reports. And so we can maintain the legacy because there is a huge legacy of paginated report and Excel report, but also new reporting in Power BI. But all of that happens on premises. So we explain to people that there are different kind of reporting, so that they can achieve, of course, the pixel perfect. But most of the time, paginated reports are done by the BI developer, so by the IT teams, and that with the Power BI report, they can easily and quickly do some very, very interactive and interesting report. In the second case, we had a data warehouse. We had also reporting on top of that. And the Power BI was a huge success already. And about the dependence with the IT, it was quite fragmented because there were a lot of departments into the IT, so there were no general hierarchy into that. It was just parallel silo with different competencies, different tools. So we needed to do something about that because it was a little chaotic. So first of all, we needed to recognize that the data warehouse is the best sources. And then we proposed to work with different level of data. So we will have the managed data marts and the managed reports that are done by the IT itself, meaning that in one case it will be totally managed by the IT report. In the managed data marts, the IT will help to build the data model, and then business will start to do their own reporting. They are also creating a data catalog to help people to find the single version of the truth. And all the reports are segregated based on the level of trust. So for that, we are using workspace convention name, specific on page in the reports with all the metadata of the report. And now they are using also the certification, which was not available at the time. So for instance, we explain people that there are three flavors of the BI that they can use. There is the self-service, so it is a symbol to indicate people, okay, you do your own stuff. So the IT is only responsible to give you support for the tenant itself. That's all. The validated data mart, so all the data sources are validated and trustworthy. And the validated report, it's the full Monty by the IT. So this is more for corporate report or very sensitive cases. In the third case, there were no central version of the true because there were no data warehouse at else. The existing data were only existing at the operational layer. So from different database, even from factory system, there were no centralized reporting. So, and the project was led by the business. So we needed to explain the utility to build a data warehouse with an agile method, of course, and an iterative process. So by the book BI project. But also because of that, we needed to build a framework to monitor and pilot the data warehouse because we have encountered a lot of problem by loading the operational data, and we needed to show that every day, okay, we have a problem here, it's because of that, and we needed to build the trust, because the trust into what you offer as data is the key in BI. One of the way to do it was, and it was a very useful one, that's why I mention it here, it was the labeling of operational data as BI ready or not, meaning that with those flags, we could sort them and integrate only the good data into the data warehouse. So if someone wanted to see a specific contract and the contract was not there, we are, okay, it's not yet BI ready because this and that, and you can expect that for our next release, for instance, because we needed to fix some problem at the operational level as well. So it was really, an iterative project with a lot of interaction between the operational developer and the teams that was doing the data warehouse. Second objective, non-technical users can do their own data analysis. When you think about that, of course, you are very dependent of the level of knowledge of your user. Do they know the tools? Are they trained? Is there the famous data culture? Or is the access granted to the data? And do you have a data office? Is there some data governance? And so on and so on. So let's dig into that for our 3 projects. So in the first scenario, in the first project, the data governance was very strong because the data is sensitive and because there is a long story, 20 years of data warehousing and reporting in the house. The analysts usually, most of the time, they are using Excel. There is a data culture, of course, so people are aware about the quality of the data, about the calculation, but there is no data culture about data viz. So for those people, most of the time, all is in table, huge table with conditional formatting, some chart, but that's all. And there were a few people, extra super analysts, using the R Studio. So what has been done for that to make sure that everyone was able to do their own analysis? We provide them training. And to do so, we started with a very basic training. And for me, this very basic training is super important in each Power BI project. It is how to consume a report. Because there is a lot of interactivity into a Power BI report. And even if your audience will be a Power BI developer, people need to know all the interactivity that exists into a Power BI report. And by that, I mean, the interaction between the visual, the drill down, the drill through, the bookmarks. Is it is it possible to export? Why export? Why not export stuff? And so on and so on. So this is the key, the basis for the right usage of Power BI. Power BI. Then, of course, we train the people to create reports. And because the data are provided from a cube with a very big generic data model, we show them how to create a report from a connection to the cube. So in this case, there is no Power Query training, there is no modelization training, they are just directly connecting to the cube, but they can create their own measure if they want. After that, the users were invited to specific workshop because they needed to be sure that they understood the data model and the specificity of the data model, because we had some, historical versioning in it. We are some sophisticated, slowly changing dimension. And so we needed to explain them all of the subtlety for the data model, but we focused on specific theme by workshop. So this is a sample of the very colorful and interactive report that we use for the consume training. And it is very, very interactive because it is like a showcase of all the possibility that you can have into a Power BI report. And a very important stuff for me is that when I do the first training, I am using a specific data set outside of the data of the company. I know that most of the Power BI trainers, they like to use the data from their customer. For me, I need people to focus on the tool, not on the data first. So I'm using a data model which is fruit and vegetable. Very simple to explain concept to people. And after a while, we can dig into their own data. If you don't do that, people will focus on the number and not on the tool. The second case, so the large organization. So because it was large and because the Power BI adoption was already wide, we had very, very different audience. for the training. So we had highly skilled BI developer and we had also per user. The data governance was only emerging and the reporting culture was very diverse and there were no central recommendation. So we needed to create something to gather the people around the Power BI history in this company. So for that, we created a transversal to different department factory. So the Power BI factory, you can see that as an excellence center. We create a very detailed training path. And the first training that we gave to user is a specific governance training. And this training is mandatory to follow, to assist, to attend, if you want to obtain a workspace. So that's the condition. And this is important because it is the moment where you will explain the rules of the game to the people in this training. Of course, it was just 1 hour included into the report creation training, so it was very smooth for the people. But it was a very important momentum to give them, okay, now we have Power BI, now we have self-service BI, this is how we play. Those are the possibilities. You can use managed data mart, you can do your own self-service, you can have managed report, but if you are this training, you want to create report, let's talk about that. Also, we created a specific community on Yammer because they were using Yammer to make the first support. And this place was about the support around the tools itself. So if someone is asking, how can I create a drill through? There will be someone to answer that. And at first, of course, that would be one of the moderator in Yammer, who was one of the Power BI team itself. And in parallel, of course, support help desk are available. So the three key were training, community, and support. And all together was with the governance was the Power BI factory. Okay, so as you can see here, this was the learning path that we proposed to the people, from the consume the report to the last level, which is very IT oriented, of course. Also, we wanted people to be aware of what was possible. So we created some communication like this one. Get your ingredients. There was a specific demand process. You want to start something with Power BI, get your ingredients. Learn to bake, training. Get some help, support. And then you can share and enjoy your reporting. This is an example of the Yammer homepage with different area, because of course there are the question and answer, but there were also linked to the FAQ announcements for the new feature. This is something you need to propose to your user. And also you need to curate what they can find on Google. So this can be a nice idea. We also provide people with cheat sheets so they can have a quick review, or, okay, I want to use Power BI. What is important? I have self-service, manage data mart, manage report. Okay. I want to publish something. I have a Power BI compliance check that I can use. In the third case, there were no data culture in the business, so they were only doing some report, in Excel for finance and in PowerPoint for marketing. No specific data governance unless do not access that. Even though the business was leading the project, it was a very specific team into the business. So the sponsor of the project, but the different department, they have no specific needs from start. So we needed to create some kind of appetence for that. So to to sensibilize people, we have done some boot camp, 2 days boot camp to make the data culture, begin into the different department. Each time we deliver an app or a report, it was with a short training to consume it properly. So you can't just publish a report, say, okay, that's done. Also, and that was the most interesting stuff we have done, one of the most interesting we have done, in the different department, in the different business unit, we had a champion as a spoke. And this champion was sent to a deeper training, and there was a process of certification through the central, the big BI group organization. So it was like a proof for them to empower them that they can do Power BI. And the last initiative was very successful. It was what we call the Power BI clinic. So each week, each Tuesday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., there was someone, usually me, to provide technical assistance on the self-service project themselves. So they knew that the door was open for them. They can sit with the laptop, and we were looking at the problem together. And this is a very powerful way, to keep the conversation between the self-service report maker and the IT or the BI team. So in the boot camps, we had different phases. So people were coming with very specific problem, and we started from that, and we applied that. And one of the tools we used the most at this moment was a very nice one. This is a little portable whiteboard, it's an A4 format with a magnet on it. It's just to do a mock-up with the people you are brainstorming with. So it was really useful to start to make stuff very concrete for the people. So regarding the training, there were some training kits provided by the Central Power BI organization. And at the end of it, so that was self-training, at the end of it, you have the possibility to achieve a certificate for them. And we help people for the level 1 and level 2 by giving them the training with a trainer. And the famous clinic, very, very successful story. Okay. Our third objective is that the IT team can breathe again and focus on added value tasks. So the constant authoring of reports, the overwhelming authoring of, basic report should not be there anymore. Also very important, and I now have a new project where they were explaining to me that one of the problem is that not only they need to provide the support about the tools, but also the support about the content, unless the other development in the host. So with the BI, of course, with the self-service BI, you can think about switching the responsibility of the content to what you can call data owners, report owner, you name it. But somehow, when a report is published, you can move that, you can switch that responsibility to them, like for a newspaper. They are the owner of the content. So in the first situation, Like I said before, a dedicated BI team was creating almost all of the content, and they were overwhelmed by tickets and demands, and the user were very frustrated, and you it was in the air. you it was possible to feel it actually. There were really nice people, but everyone was so, you know, uh, nervous, stressed. What we have done, because now the business can author report by connecting the cube, because there were training and there were evangelization and there were those workshops, the frustration is not there anymore. And the workshop, they are not only training about the model, but also very specific workshop to examine the backlog. So they change the way to interact and collaborate with the team. And now the pipeline of the conversation is open. The IT trusts the business to create some interesting report, and they support them into that. It's really a game changer. For the second scenario, so when I arrived there, the Power BI doesn't add any official Power BI administration team. There were only 2 and 3 volunteers to support. I think it was something like 700 of people and reports. So of course it was not properly done. There were a lot of frustration as well. They had a very mature data math model, but which was not necessarily known by all of the audience. And so where to start with that? So by creating this Power BI factory where the governance was defined, by defining a clear demand process and a clear support process, we add that. What they have for the future as well is the automation of the monitoring and the administration for the Power BI service. And by that, I mean, for instance, the fact that people can fill in a form to ask for a workspace creation and this kind of stuff. So, conclusion. A few lessons to remember from those cases. Of course, you need to know the maturity of your business to start at the right level of it, but also the maturity of your IT. I explain. Usually, IT is not totally ready to give the freedom to the user and also to understand how SaaS functions. So the first people you will need to evangelize will be the IT team. And you need to draw a line with them between what they will manage, what they will people do, what they will, what they let people do. Sorry. Also, you need to know your objective, your criteria of success. Uh, it is very, very important to build a, you name it, champion, heroes, per user culture, because you need them as your first line of support. You need them to spread the culture into the company. If you are not providing a training, there will be no adoption. And providing a training, ideally, that should be done in the house. That should be done by one of your team member, ideally. If you are using an external provider for your training, you need to be very careful and at least start the training with 1 hour that you are giving yourself to start the conversation with the user and also to provide them the rules of the game with the governance aspect. So you need to deliver a clear, simple, viable governance. Create a dedicated task force like the Power BI factory is very interesting. of course, because it is the self-service, you need to monitor your environment. So you can open the tap, but you need to know what's going on your tunnel, of course. Your training can be in very different shapes and form. So you can have instructor-led training, but also you can provide, like the clinic coaching session, like some webinar during lunchtime. There is a lot of things that can be done for that. Do not forget the people that are consuming the report. This is the biggest part of your audience. And because of the way Power BI is working, there is a lot to do, even with only the interaction of a report. Create catalog, and also you need to propose support and to organize your support around Power BI. That is very, very important. If you want to read more about it, I have done what I call Power BI lesson of adoption. I have some article on my blog, so be free to go there and we can continue the conversation around that if you are interested into it. So thank you for attending this session. I wish you most successful Power BI stories in your company and see you soon.